The National Museum of African American History and Culture releases a new racist display to combat racism. Barry Weiss is out from the New York Times. And Twitter locks down some blue checkmark accounts. My name is Sean Clinton, and this is the Guide to Freedom Show. Alrighty, so I hope everyone is having themselves a great week. Happy Friday. So I'm going to get to all the whole what the National Museum of African American History is doing and their really weird and racist display, and plus we'll get to Barry Weiss and all that. But first, we're going to give you a update on the COVID-19. So as you've probably been watching, the cases have continued to gone up and everything. There has been a slight spike in cases, but the good news is the actual death rate from this thing has dropped dramatically. It's almost like pretty much anybody under the age of 50 or somewhere around the range. This has become less deadly than the flu. It was always for the younger, below 20 or so, that was always less deadly than the flu. But as time goes on, as this strain weakens and everything, there's actually a theory that there's actually a new strain out there that's what's caused kind of this second wave, if you will. And although it's more contagious, it's less deadly. So it's more kind of like a cold. A cold is very contagious, but you're not likely to die from it. So that's a bit of good news right there. But one thing I do want to point out exactly what's kind of been going on with the numbers. As I say, the numbers are, the cases are spiking, but as kind of a oxymoron in a way, because some of the ways they're counting these cases there's some fudge numbers going on around here. So a guy named Steve Eager, he said that on Twitter, here's what he tweeted out. The state of Texas today had to remove about 3,484 cases from its COVID positive case count because the San Antonio Health Department was reporting probable cases for people who never actually tested as confirmed positive cases. TDHS, what other departments make this same mistake? And this is not just in Texas. Same thing's happening in Florida. Same thing's actually happened here in Georgia too. I know, my mom, she said that some of her friends have gotten something in the mail about how they have tested positive for COVID-19 when they never actually tested for it. So there's some strange things going on with the counting and everything. So that's why I think, the case numbers we're seeing from the media is not entirely accurate. In fact, just a couple of days ago, there was this new thing in Florida where they were pretty much getting 100% positivity rate from all the tests they were getting. Every single person in Florida who was coming to test was testing positive for COVID-19, which is very unlikely by all accounts, because there's no way possible every single person, as many people we are testing right now, there's no way possible that many people or everybody in that group is testing positive. And it turns out that is not the case. There were actually I forget the details of the actual study, but the numbers were pretty much fudged, and actually the actual positivity rate from all the tests in that Florida study was 9.4%. 9.4% positivity rate, not 100%, not 90, not 60, 9.4. So yeah, we got some really serious issues of how this thing is being counted and everything. And this is why I think President Trump he announced just on Wednesday, I believe, that all the case numbers, data to collect, have to go through his administration and department and whatever. Because I'm not saying that the CDC is doing this. itself, but probably the people who they get their information from are like fudging these numbers. So now, like, President Trump is like, okay, we need to watch these numbers like really closely because something is not right here. Like, there's no, like, seriously, like dropping like about over 3,000 cases from your case count. That's not good. That's not good. And the same thing has happened with deaths too. Like, as you recall, that there have been counting some people who died with COVID-19, but not from it. So you can like get a heart attack or some like get just a regular pneumonia, but you test positive for COVID-19, but COVID-19 is actually not what killed you. But they count on those as the COVID-19 deaths, which it just it's a messed up kind of counting process of what they're doing. And since now, President Trump is now in charge of this, I hope he doesn't make it political. There's always a chance for that, but I do hope the numbers and everything can come more clarity, become more accurate. So we'll see what comes out of that. But of course, again, that's not to put aside that cases are rising in the United States. Deaths are rising, but again, the death rate is actually declining. But of course, as we have seen, the lockdowns didn't really do much. It really didn't do anything at all. But of course, there are some states who are looking to lock down again. So one of them is the state of California. So here's a clip about Governor Gavin Newsom announcing that he's going to be closing down California again. Here's the video right here.
As coronavirus cases surge in California, Governor Gavin Newsom on Monday announced a sweeping rollback to the state's reopening.
We are now effective today, requiring all counties to close their indoor activities, their indoor operations in the following sectors: restaurants, wineries, tasting rooms, movie theaters, family entertainment centers, zoos and museums, card rooms, and the shuttering of all bars.
Newsom on Monday also ordered the closure of churches, gyms, and hair salons in the hardest hit counties. Several counties are experiencing strains to their hospital systems as cases mount.
Yesterday, in the latest reporting period, we had 8,358 cases. You're seeing hospitalization numbers increase 28% over a 2-week period.
The surge in cases has also prompted two of California's largest school districts with over 700,000 students, Los Angeles and San Diego, to announce that all learning will be online only when classes resume in a few weeks. In a joint statement Monday, the school districts said, quote, "The skyrocketing infection rates of the past few weeks make it clear the pandemic is not under control."
Alrighty, so that's pretty crazy right there. Like, seriously, there's no reason to lock down again. Because, okay, like I've said many times, the only way through this is really going forward and pushing through this thing. like we're gonna have to reach some kind of herd immunity. And while at the same time there is a good things coming from the vaccine that's being developed right now, there's some really great progress and everything, and we can see that come out as early as next year, hopefully. But at the same time, there's no guarantee that would actually happen at this point. But so we have to reach some kind of herd immunity. So locking down like this again is only going to make it worse, because while you restrict movement, when you unrestrict movement, it's going to go right back up. So, and that's why it's all so stupid and everything. And the whole thing about hospitalizations going up and everything, the hospitals are not even close to being overrun. Yes, there's been an increase in hospitalizations from COVID, but it's nowhere near, it's not taking up the vast majority of people in the hospital right now. Because right now, more people are actually going in to get, surgeries and treatments that they've been waiting on for months. But for some reason now, the data is actually, their data analysis people, whatever, they're counting those as COVID hospitalizations. as them. So it just is all messed up. It's all very messed up. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I doubt California's gonna be the last state to lock down, but I can imagine probably Michigan's gonna probably be one of them. And I can't think of any other state that would. Maybe North Carolina, but that's about it. I mean, New York is not gonna lock down anytime soon because they're doing actually pretty good. Their cases have gone down and everything, and that's because of course, they were so they got slaughtered the first time around because of Andrew Cuomo and his incompetence. So I mean, they're actually doing pretty good, which is probably the reason for this is because they have reached some kind of herd immunity themselves. So I mean, we'll see what comes out of it. Hopefully it stays that way. So I don't know, we'll see, but that's it for COVID-19 for now. So let's get on to this dumb thing right here. So the National Museum of African American History and Culture released this kind of display for their new museum thing. It is basically, it's called Aspects and Assumptions of Whiteness and White Culture in the United States. So by the title that this is going to be very interesting in himself. So, but trust me, you're not ready for what's about to be, what is said in this thing. It is quite astonishing. Quite astonishing. So, and you got put the kind of the poster up here as you can see it. So the first little section they have as part of white culture is rugged individualism, and that includes the individual is the primary unit, self-reliance, independence, and autonomy, highly valued and rewarded. Individuals assumed to be in the control of their environment. You get what you deserve. So being kind of independent and whatnot that's now part of white culture. That's now racist. Really? And now also a family structure, nuclear family, like father and mother of 2 to 3 children is that's the ideal social unit. Part of the nuclear family. That's now part of white culture now. Now also, the husband is the breadwinner, the head of the household. Wife is the homemaker, is subordinate to the husband. Children should have own rooms and be independent. So children having their own rooms is now whiteness. So yeah, if you have your own room, you're displaying your inner whiteness. Okay. Emphasis on scientific method. Objective and rational linear thinking is now part of whiteness. So the whole, objectivity, like you talk about just those straight facts and kind of have a rational thinking about a certain situation and cause and effect relationships and quantitative emphasis. That's now part of whiteness now. Goodness, this is history based on Northern European immigrants' experience in the United States. Heavy focus on the British Empire, the primary Western Greek and Roman and Judeo-Christian tradition. Yes, because that's where the United States kind of rooted from. The Judeo-Christian values led to in combination with the Roman and Greek Empire, the values, all that came in and created the Western culture, the Western civilization, and that's what eventually went into the creating the United States. So, but that's now part of white culture, whiteness. Protestant work ethic, work ethic is now part of whiteness. Hard work is the key to success. Work before play. if you didn't meet your goals, you didn't work hard enough. That's now whiteness. If you work hard and want to gain success, you're displaying your inner whiteness. I have so many thoughts about this, but I'm going to continue to read the entire thing first, because it is it's so insane. Oh, come on. Anyways, now on to religion. How Christianity, of course, is now part whiteness, white culture, anything that came from the Judeo-Christian tradition, or anything that's not other than the Judeo-Christian tradition is foreign to that, whatever. Okay. Now, like, status of power and authority, like wealth equals worth, which is kind of a weird contention and everything. Heavy value of ownership of goods and space and property. What? Goodness. Future orientation. Plan for the future. Delayed gratification. Progress is always best. Tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow will be better. So if you tell that to someone, you're displaying your inner whiteness because of that. Time. Follow regular time schedules. Time viewed as a commodity. So if you follow that kind of time schedules to keep yourself organized, that's now whiteness. Ooh, whiteness. Aesthetics. Based on European culture, steak and potatoes, bland is best. Women's beauty based on blonde, then Barbie. Man's attractiveness on economic status, power, and intellect. What? What is, I don't know what that means. Holidays, based on Christian religions, based on white history and male leaders. Okay. And I was, of course, talking about Christmas because, everybody hates Christmas now. And now, justice, based on English common law. So English is, speak English, that's now whiteness. Competition, be number one, win at all costs, winning, all that. Decision-making, aggressiveness, majority rules, when whites have power. Seriously? I mean, good. Like this, now, the final part of it is communication. The King's English rules, written tradition, avoid conflict, intimacy, don't show emotion, don't discuss personal life, be polite. Yes, be polite. If you are polite, that's now whiteness. Ooh. Alright, I'm gonna get to my thoughts on all this. But first, you gotta go over to YouTube or the God and Fruity Pod to check it out. So not only get to my thoughts on this stupid display from these people, but also on the resignation of Barry Weiss, and also the Twitter locking down some blue check marks, which was pretty great. And also you get to toward the end where I go over the book of John. I might be in John chapter 15 today. Also get good stuff and bad stuff of the week. And remember, you can find me on your favorite podcast listening sites like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. This is the God and Freedom Show. Alrighty, so let's just say, okay, just picture this for a moment right here. Say you saw the display, and let's say that the name of the National Museum of African American History wasn't on there. You didn't know it was from them. You would probably rightly think that a white supremacist wrote this. Like, seriously, everything that's written in this display right here is exactly what white supremacists believe about America and everything. They believe it's all about, it's made for white culture and everything. Everything's part of white culture and everything, like even success is part of white culture. That's what white supremacists believe. And now these woke people from the National Museum of African American History are now saying the exact same things. And you got to take this into account right here. So the whole idea of now that if you want to succeed in life, seriously, if you want to try to succeed in life, if you want to, have keep a time schedule and everything, and plan for the future, that's now part of whiteness. That's now, and you should be shamed for displaying your inner whiteness. How is that not racist? How is that not racist to tell someone, like a black person, to say, okay, if you even succeed, if you try to work hard and succeed, that means you're displaying whiteness. If you want to stay true to your color, don't succeed. Don't work hard, because that's part of white culture. So, I'm sorry. Like, what kind of... How evil and demented do you have to be to say to the person that you can't see because if you want to stay true to your color? But that's seriously the worst thing ever you can say to anyone, that you can't succeed in life no matter what you do. No matter what you do, you can't succeed. That is like, how can anyone defend that? And again, that's not true. If you work hard, you can succeed. That's the fact of life, and especially here in America. If you work hard, you can succeed, get some level of success. But now we have gone so far into the rabbit hole of the woke energy left. Now, if you even try to do this, it's now part of white culture, and basically you should be shamed for it. Ashamed for doing that. Like, just, I swear, the whole idea of, like, just, of, like, white culture, of, like, and everything, it's all just so maddening. But now, it all springs from the idea of, anti-racism. And it's because the left idea of that is basically, it's not enough to be not racist. You have to be anti-racist according to the left. You have to follow certain criteria to be anti-racist enough to meet the standards of the left. So there's this piece in the Washington Post titled "Stumbling Towards Wokeness." After George Floyd's death, she wanted to be anti-racist, but what would that mean exactly? It's quite something. Here's what it says. Tulsa. The text messages were flying in to Christine Tell's on telephone. They were coming from a group of friends who taught with her at a preschool inside the Methodist chapel near the green fields of the University of Tulsa. A woman on our Facebook post is claiming we are a whites-only school. One wrote about the interaction on Facebook. Someone tell me what I'm missing. When Tell looked at the post, she knew exactly what was missing. Photos of black and brown students. All of the smiling children featured on the school's post were white, which teachers insisted was a coincidence. Maybe it was. So far from the truth, one Miss Rodden noticed that some of the children in this post were Hispanic. And it continues right here. Even though she lived hundreds of miles from... Tell tried to figure out the right way to contribute to the conversation ever since she watched a video of a police officer digging his knee into the neck of George Floyd. She had pledged to become a better white person. Even though she lived hundreds of miles from the street corner in Minneapolis where police pinned George Floyd to the ground, Tell felt complicit in his death. She had convicted herself and white people just like her of a lack of concern about racism in America, shaping a country in which black men can be killed in such a disturbing and public way. Seriously? You felt convicted? She convicted herself over the death of George Floyd that she had nothing to do with? And she says that other white people should feel the same way? Seriously? Seriously? Again, like, the death of George Floyd was freaking awful. But I'm not going to sit there and pretend that I somehow hold any responsibility for what happened. And again, I'm not going to hold any responsibility for any racism people will display. Like, I've never said anything or done anything racist in my life. So, people who do racist things, I'm not responsible for those people. That's not how this works. But it comes, of course, from the woke entity belief that you must be held responsible for the sins of the collective. Not for your individual sins, the sins of the collective. And you must bow down to people of color, or the people, or the woke mob, and ask for forgiveness from those people for the sins of the collective racism. And if you don't, you will be shouted out of town, you will be shunned, and you will be destroyed, and you won't be able to get a job anywhere ever again. It's so mad. It's pagan nonsense. Pagan is really pagan nonsense. Because again, with Christianity, like, you're held responsible for your own individual sins, and you had to go ask God to forgive those sins. So the whole idea of you being held responsible for sins you didn't commit is actually simple in itself. It's so dumb. And you know how dumb this whole racism thing, it's getting so dumb. It's so freaking dumb. Like, literally everything is now becoming racist. It's now racist according to the left. You know how dumb this has become? Classical music is now overdue for reckoning with racism. So here, there's a piece in the Washington Post that's talking about this. It's titled, "The Sound You're Hearing is Classical Music's Long Overdue Reckoning with Racism." Racism. Seriously? Classical music? Racism is so pervasive in this country and in the world at large that it has, in many instances, become unconscious. It can slip into daily discourse and go unrecognized, even by people who clearly ought to know better. So now you can be unconsciously racist, but how does that work? Like, nobody is born a racist, but that's not embedded down in our genetic genes. It's just not the case. People learn to be racist. So this idea that we are somehow unconsciously racist is so stupid. It's so freaking dumb. The late great soprano Jessica Norman reserved just one chapter of her 2014 memoir, Stand Up Straight and Sing, for a discussion of the discrimination she faced so often throughout her career, even as one of the most decorated performers on the international opera stage. But it's safe to assume race was a running theme in her magnificent life. A dissonant motive that emerged again and again in the form of careless slurs and slights from conductors' TV roles that would have reduced her from ditto on stage to maid on screen. Offensive questions from bubbling critics and nosy security guards challenging her right to exist in the hotel pool. What? She once committed to recording accounts of these macro aggressions in a journal titled Racialism as she spoke, but abandoned the project after a few months when her journal grew too thick. Okay. Those who would imagine that the rarefied realms of classical music and opera have removed somehow from the rancor of racism would be, as Norman put it, mistaken. Sadly mistaken. And so, too, would those imagine that our nation's intensifying reckoning with racial injustice merely marches past the concert hall. As the police killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Elijah McClain, and others have come to light amid the rise of anti-racism as a cultural imperative spurred by the activism of the Black Lives Matter movement, the rifts and inequalities that define American culture since its inception have become more visible than ever, and the call to improve institutions from criminal justice to art organizations to newsrooms is ascending to stages and offices of the classical world. Data collected from 500 American orchestras for a 2016 study by the League of American Orchestras paints a starkly white picture when it comes to diversity in classical organizations. Its key finding, the proportion of non-white musicians representative in the orchestra workforce of the African American, Hispanic, Latino musicians in particular remains extremely low. Okay. Maybe, possibly, just hear me out here. Maybe this has nothing to do with racism. Maybe it has to do with that not many, but as a matter of fact, maybe more white people are interested in doing band and classical music, and then instead of more like black people, Hispanic people. Maybe that's just the case. Maybe they just have different interests. Ever thought about that? Of course not, because they want to paint a particular narrative that America is a horrible, evil, racist country down to its core. And they continue to do that day by day. We're pointing out silly little things, the silly things, even as silly as classical music, as is a token of racism. There needs to be racism reckoning with this type of music right here. It's so dumb. It's so dumb that now, thing is, I'm not an active listener of classical music, but I do love some classical music. So I'm going to actually, in the description of the YouTube video, I'm going to put in the description a link to a 4-hour-long YouTube video of some classical music. And just listen to it and tell me, where you find the racism in that. It's so... it's so dumb. It's so dumb. I know I keep saying it's dumb a lot, but it is very dumb. Alrighty, so now let's get on to Barry Weiss. So Barry Weiss was a former editor and writer for the New York Times. She was one of the more kind of moderate liberal person at the New York Times, more centrist. She did that actually on purpose. She went into the New York Times about 3 years ago on purpose to kind of see what's going on, see if she can get out some conservative voices out there from the New York Times, because as we all know, New York Times pretty much is biased to the left. There's no way around that. But because of her beliefs and everything, she has been a target of harassment, bullying, and everything from her co-workers. So, in response to that, she basically resigned. So here's her resignation letter to the head of the New York Times. Here's what she said. Dear AG, it is with sadness that I write to tell you that I am resigning from the New York Times. I joined the paper with gratitude and optimism 3 years ago. I was hired with the goal of bringing the voices that would not otherwise appear in your pages, first-time writers, centrists, conservatives, and others who would not naturally think of the New York Times as their home. Which is a good kind of goal to reach. It would be so helpful if there were a lot of conservative voices also coming from the New York Times instead of just far left crap. Just kind of get a balance of things. But people at the New York Times are not going to have that. The reason for this effort was clear. The paper's failure to anticipate the outcome of the 2016 election meant that it didn't have a firm grasp of the country it covers. Dean Baquette and others have admitted as much on various occasions. The priority and opinion was to help redress that critical shortcoming. I was honored to be part of that effort. Led by James Bennett, I am proud of my work as a writer and as an editor. Among those I have helped bring to our pages the Venezuelan descendant Willie Artiga, and the Iranian chess champion Dorza Dirkashani, and the Hong Kong Christian Democrat Derek Lam. Also, Ayan Hirsi Ali, Mansi Alin Jad, Zayana Arafat, Elena Baker, Rachel Den Hollander, Maddie Friedman, Nick Gillespie, Heather Hang, Randall Kennedy, Julius Crane, Monica Lewinsky, Glenn Lowry, Jess Single, Ali Sofan, Chloe Valaderi, Thomas Chatterton, Wesley Yang, and many others. I probably botched all those names right there. But the lessons that ought to have followed the election, lessons about the importance of understanding of other Americans, necessity of resisting tribalism, and the centrality of the free exchange of ideas in the democratic society have not been learned. Instead, a new consensus has emerged in the press, but perhaps especially at this paper, that truth is in a process of collective discovery, but an orthodoxy already known to the enlightened few whose job is to inform everyone else. Twitter is not the masthead of the New York Times, but Twitter has become its ultimate editor. As the ethics and mores of that platform have become those of the paper itself has increasingly become a kind of a performance space. Stories are chosen and told in a way to satisfy the narrowest of audiences, rather than to allow a curious public to read about the world and then to draw their own conclusions. I was always taught that journalists were charged with writing the first draft of history. Now, history itself is one more ephemeral thing molded to fit the needs of a predetermined narrative. My own forays into wrongthink have made me the subject of constant bullying by colleagues who disagree with my views. They call me a Nazi and a racist. I have learned to brush off comments about how I'm writing about the Jews again. Several colleagues perceived to be friendly with me were badgered by coworkers. My work and my character are openly demeaned on company-wide Slack channels and where masthead editors regularly weigh in. There are some coworkers insist. Some coworkers insist I need to be rooted out of this company if this company is to be truly inclusive, while others posted axe emojis next to my name. Still, other New York Times employees publicly smear me as a liar and a bigot on Twitter with no fear of harassing me would met with appropriate action. They never are. There are terms for all this: unlawful discrimination, hostile work environment, and a constructive discharge. I'm no legal expert, but I know that this is wrong. I do not understand how you've allowed this kind of behavior to go on inside your company in full view of the paper's entire staff and in the public, and I certainly can't square how you and other Time leaders have stood by while simultaneously praising me in private for my courage. Showing up for work as a centrist at an American newspaper should not require bravery. Part of me wishes I could say that my experience was unique, but the truth is that the intellectual curiosity, let alone risk-taking, is now a liability at the Times. Why edit something challenging to our leaders, or write something bold and only to go through the numbing process of making it ideologically kosher when we can assure ourselves of job security and clicks by publishing our 4,000 op-ed arguing that Donald Trump is a unique danger to the country and the world. And so self-censorship has become the norm. Where the rules that remain at the New Times are applied are with extreme selectivity. If a person's ideology is in keeping with the new orthodoxy, they and their work remain unscrutinized. Everyone else lives in fear of the digital Thunderdome. Online venom is accused. It's accused as long as it is directed at the proper targets. Op-eds that would have easily been published just 2 years ago would now get an editor or a writer in serious trouble, if not fired. If a piece is perceived as likely to inspire backlash internally or on social media, the editor or writer avoids pitching it. If she feels strongly enough to suggest it, she is quickly steered to safer ground. And if every now and then she succeeds in getting a piece published that does not explicitly promote progressive causes, it happens only after every line is carefully massaged, negotiated, and caveated. So basically, this entire letter is her ripping the New York Times apart, and rightfully so. Like, New York Times is obviously, I mean, we have known this for years, but this is just another confirmation. They are obviously a biased to the left organization, and they want to root out any other dissident voice. If you're a conservative and want to try to go to the New York Times, good luck with that. Good luck with that, because like Barry Weiss is pretty much a centrist Democrat mostly, and just like she voted Democrat in 2018. She was voted out, so there's no way a straight on conservative can make it in there. There's no way. So I really applaud her for coming out and doing this, and her just ripping the New York Times apart. It's so richly deserved against them. Of course, people on Twitter are making fun of her, calling her a snowflake, and one about, oh, people are mean to her. Okay, seriously, if someone on the left was treated the exact same way on a conservative organization, it would be on headlines all over, because it happened at a left-wing organization. It kind of gets swiped aside. But this tells you why people don't like the media at all. People do not like the media. It's not because of Trump. It has nothing to do with Trump. People hated the media for years, even before Trump came in. So, and they just bathe themselves, especially this year, they have bathed themselves in absolute disgrace. And so they deserve any blowback, any criticism they get. They deserve all of it. Alrighty. So now let's get on to more kind of funny story. So, a couple days ago, some big kind of blue check mark people were basically hacked. Somehow hacked. I don't know how it happened. Twitter's doing an investigation of how it happened. But there were a lot of people who were hacked. You got people like Jeff Bezos, Joe Biden, Kanye West, Bill Gates was hacked. Apple was hacked. And here's what they were all saying. Here's what Joe Biden's tweet said. I am giving back to the community. All Bitcoin sent to the address below, will be sent back doubled. If you send $1,000, I will send back $2,000. Only doing this for 30 minutes. Enjoy. And Jeff Bezos kind of said the same thing. Apple had done the same thing. Kanye West did the same thing. It's quite a sight to see. So, in response to this, because there was a lot of blue checkmarks who were hacked like this, so Twitter decided to basically lock down all blue checkmark people on Twitter for a couple of hours. And it was quite hilarious. Sorry. It was quite hilarious because, like, a lot of the unverified people, or people who don't have blue check marks, like me included, were like, this is our time. Our time to take Twitter once for all. So, it's quite hilarious. And also, it was hilarious to see kind of some other people who with blue check marks kind of communicating through other accounts, saying that they're good and everything, just waiting to be locked back in. Everything. It was quite. That was a fun couple hours right there. It was pretty fun. Alrighty, so let's get on to some scripture right now. So today we're actually going to be starting John chapter 15. And so let's open it up. And remember, you can follow me along if you want, and I'll be in the New Living Translation. Jesus, the true vine. I am the true grapevine. I am the true grapevine. My Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit, and he prunes the branches that do bear fruit so they will produce even more. You have already been pruned, purified by the message I have given you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it is severed from the vine. And you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. Yes, I am the vine. You are the branches. Those who remain in me, and I in them, will produce fruit, much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me is thrown away like a useless branch and withers. Such branches are gathered into a pile and burned. But if you remain in me, if you remain in me and my words remain in you, you may ask for anything you want, and it will be granted you. But when you produce fruit, much fruit, you are my true disciples. This brings great glory to my Father. I have loved you even as the Father loved me. Remain in my love. When you obey my commandments, you remain in my love, just as I obey my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I have told you these things so that you will be filled with my joy. Yes, your joy will overflow. This is my commandment. Love each other in the same way I have loved you. There's no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends. If you do what I command, I no longer call you slaves, because a master doesn't confide in his slaves. You are my friends. So I have told you everything the Father told me. You didn't choose me, I chose you. I appointed you to go and produce lasting fruit, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask for using my name. This is my command. Love each other. Alrighty. So it's kind of cool, like how in the beginning it kind of highlights, like shows a picture of how a relationship with Jesus works and everything. Like how, like we don't have a relationship with Jesus. You don't follow him. You basically just living on the outside. You look good and everything, but on the inside you're withering away and rotting to the core. That's because you don't have the vine right there. You don't have Jesus to keep you alive and producing fruit. But when we have Jesus as you know, as it says, you know, being the vine, you are now capable of producing fruit. And as it kind of goes down how a bunch of the vines who were rotted and withered, they were thrown into a fire and burned. That's kind of an image of what was going to happen in end times. People who don't, you know, follow Jesus and everything, they will be gathered up and basically thrown into a fiery lake. That's what's going to happen. And of course, you know, we got the famous, you know, commandment and everything, how, you know, love each other as, you know, I loved you. And, you know, cool. One of my favorites is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. right there. That's exactly what Jesus is about to do. Everything is pretty cool. So, yeah, so next week we're going to get on to where he goes over the world's hatred, basically the world's hatred of Jesus and everything. So, alright. So now let's get on to good stuff and bad stuff of the week. So the good stuff of the week, this is pretty cool right here. This is honestly really, really cool. So Chris Evans, who was obviously, everyone knows, he played Captain America in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's one of my favorite in the MCU. And so he did this really, really cool thing. So there's this kid, this boy who hurt. His little sister was about to be attacked by a dog, and then so he decided to protected her, and he got injured himself, and he got I think 7 stitches and everything. He got pretty badly hurt from it, but he protected his sister, turned out fine. So, and it turns out he was a big Captain America fan. So Chris Evans got word of this, and he decided to send him a replica of the Captain America shield. Not the cheap, plastic ones you see at stores or whatever, like a legit Captain America shield, like metal and everything. Not of course not made out of vibranium, not that real, but still real enough to make it like realistic and everything. It's so cool, and it's like I always like when people will do this, especially celebrities do this for people. It's really cool to see. I mostly see like people from the MCU do this a lot. You see Tom Holland do this a lot. You've seen Robert Downey Jr. do this. Chris Evans done it a few times too. It's pretty cool. Chris Hemsworth as well, and everything. It's pretty cool. Alrighty, so get some now onto the bad stuff. So the bad stuff of the week. So the Berkeley City Council in California, they decided to do something that I don't know what sane person would come up with this, but the Berkeley City Council, this is according to AA's, announced that unarmed civilian city workers will perform traffic stops, not police. So if you are caught speeding or around a red light, whatever, police will not stop you. It would be the unarmed civilian city workers. I'm sorry, what? Do you realize how stupid that is? And especially when people with bad intentions, when they know people are unarmed, they will attack that person. So you're going to send these people unarmed into the streets without any sort of protection at all? Seriously? That is so dumb. And this is part of the whole thing of defund the police and everything. Now, seriously, they Bill de Blasio, I believe they said that he announced they defunded the police and everything, and now he said our city is more safer than ever. At the same time, while crime is skyrocketing and murders is going up in New York City, he's saying that. So, yeah, these people are going to get a big wake-up call on what's going to happen when we have no more police. It's going to be bad for the people, especially in cities that like Minneapolis, New York, and everything that to continue to try to get rid of the police. Alrighty, so I'll be back here next week with all the latest. My name is Sean Clinton, and this is the God and Freedom Show. If you enjoyed this episode of the God and Freedom Show, hit that like button and follow the page to get more content. You can also find me on your favorite podcast listening sites like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Thank you for listening or watching.